Good morning and welcome into the American Huddle alongside college football analyst Andy Gresh. I'm Haley Outen. 4 American matchups on the schedule today, but we're going to lock in on 2 specifically out of the East that have serious championship implications. Let's start off with USF and Temple. The Bulls were without their quarterback Blake Barnett last week against Cincinnati, but for Temple, Andy, what do they need to do to keep their hopes alive for a conference championship this season?
Well, to me, it's continue to play complementary football, and I know that was the buzzword for teams last year. Got to be complementary. But when you really look at Temple, whether it's scoring touchdowns on defense, scoring touchdowns on special teams, doing just enough offensively to be able to win games, they are the truest version, to me, of complementary football in the American Athletic Conference. So they've got to be great in all 3 phases. They're the kind of team, Haley, that when all 3 phases are working together, they can hang with anybody. If one phase lets them down, though, then they're really behind the 8 ball because there's just not an abundance of talent right now for Jeff Collins like there is in other institutions and other schools in the American. But the one thing I love about Temple is they find ways to hang around, and that is a skill that not a lot of football teams have.
Temple defense and special teams has kept the Owls in quite a few games this season. But how about running back Raquel Armstead last week?
Amazing.
6 rushing touchdowns. Can he single-handedly leave an impact on this game?
You know, he might be able to, considering that the South Florida defense has been incredibly porous. And if you look at some of the point totals they've given up the past couple of weeks and some of the rushing totals they've given up as well, absolutely. I think Temple has the ability to take the air out of the football. And look, we don't know what's going to happen with Blake Barnett. That's a big thing to figure out. And weather. What is that weather ultimately going to be like and look like? We had the USF kids mentioning, well, you know, it's cold and they don't really dig that. It's just a couple of things to keep an eye on. But I think this is going to be a fantastic 12-round fight.
I can certainly attest to the weather difference, rather, from Florida up here to the Northeast.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm already complaining, and I've been back for like only a few days.
Yep, so. It's pretty amazing how a 20-degree difference in temperature just makes your body feel and your want to go out and play.
USF at Temple, a noon Eastern kick on ESPN News. Now the game everybody's been talking about, a primetime showdown between Cincinnati and UCF, College Game Day, headed to Orlando. First of all, how great of a showcase is it for both of these programs and the conference as a whole?
I think it's awesome that College Game Day is going there. And once you get all of those eyeballs, and what it does is it creates anticipation, Haley. I was lucky enough to do, believe it or not, a Division III game one year that College Game Day came to, and it completely changed the feel around an 8,000-seat stadium, let alone what it's going to do in Orlando. College Game Day is going to be there. You know, if you look to the NBA, LeBron James is in town as well. There's going to be a ton going on, but the main event of the evening is UCF against Cincinnati.
Have to believe Night Nation will be out in full force on Saturday morning, and going to be a really long day for those students, getting out there early in the morning and then all day long leading up to an 8 p.m. Eastern kick on ABC. But if any fans can do it, I believe it's them.
And the people from Cincinnati that are going to be traveling to this game as well, I'm sure they're going to partake in all of these festivities. And Haley, look, in terms of game breakdown, Cincinnati comes in with nothing to lose, a little bit like SMU. They've had a great year. Luke Fickell can really come up with some different kinds of things to throw at the Knights. And the one thing about Cincinnati I've really have admired, Haley, is that it feels like week to week they're getting better. It's not one of these, well, we hit our high water mark right away and we're just running through people because we're good enough to do so. It feels like week after week they're stacking up points and they're getting better. And they're getting better on both sides of the football. Desmond Ritter's got to be huge today to give Cincy a chance against UCF.
Let's talk about the Cincinnati defense, because they held the USF offense to just 12 first downs last week. How can they pose problems for Mackenzie Milton and company?
Well, let's stack it up as well in terms of Navy. Remember Cincy, who gave it up against Navy last year 2 weeks ago? Then they skunk them. Then they beat USF. Now they get UCF, and the one thing they've got to do is try to take away those big plays. And Luke Fickell, considering he's a defensive guy, I'm sure it's boys, let's keep it in front of us. However, that's difficult to do against this gaggle of wide receivers that Mackenzie Milton has to throw the football to. And oh, by the way, there is contending with Mackenzie Milton, the runner, as well.
For Cincinnati, they have a pretty dominant running back on their side in Michael Warren II, 4 total touchdowns last week against USF. How does the UCF defense contain him?
Well, I think it's got to start at the line of scrimmage. They've got to get bodies behind the line of scrimmage to be able to change the direction of the play. And it sounds so easy, but just ask Houston how easy it is to do with Ed Oliver not in the lineup. So you got to take some chances, you got to shoot some gaps, and you got to make sure to try to get Cincinnati playing from behind the chains, meaning get them in 2nd and 12, 3rd and 13. Down and distances like that are going to go a long way to them getting the job done. What they've got to mean, and what UCF has to do is find a way to crank up the pressure on Desmond Ridder, and they can do that more than just hitting him and being in his face. They can do it by putting some points on the board and getting Cincinnati to chase him.
UCF coming off of a win over Navy, and we saw a really solid outing from quarterback Mackenzie Milton. He put together 4 quarters, which is important because he has been fighting through some injuries this season. How much does the outcome of this game ride on how well Milton plays?
Yeah, I think it's huge. And I also think that, you know, the Heisman campaign is kind of sputtered here because of the injuries, and he just hasn't put up the ridiculously gaudy numbers. But there's going to come a moment in the second half of this game where he's just going to go, and the S is going to be on the chest, and Mackenzie Milton is going to take over. I expect a big second half from him, and we'll know if he's right, if he's willing to run the football and run the contact. Is it some zone read stuff where he runs and gets out of bounds and goes down, or is he fighting for those extra yards? That'll tell us a lot about his health.
For UCF, a lot on the line today. They can clinch not only the East Division title, but the right to host the American Championship. They're going to have college game day on campus, a packed house all day long. How does UCF handle all of the pressure that's surrounding them this day?
I don't think it bothers them at all, Haley. In fact, it's maybe more about, is the coach ready for it in terms of Josh Heupel, because these kids have been here before. They were also at the depths of college football just a couple of years ago with 0 wins, and now it's, hey, we're rolling. This is who we are. We've got a, 22-game win streak now. Let's just go out and keep winning and be us. So I don't think there's any pressure on the kids because they've dealt with it. In terms of the coaches, maybe a little bit of a different feeling.
Put you on the spot right here just because there's so much riding on this game. UCF or Cincinnati?
Easy. I think UCF wins this game by 10 to 14 points. However, Cincinnati is not going to make it easy, and people will come away saying, wow, that American Athletic Conference, it's a showcase game on ABC at 8 o'clock at night. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be impressed with both squads.
It's going to be a very interesting day. College game day, of course, 9 a.m. Eastern on ESPN, and then Cincinnati and UCF kicking off at 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC. And Andy, maybe when I see you in here next Monday, we'll have some answers. And maybe we won't.
Let's hope so. Let's hope it's at least a little clearer than the muddiness that are surrounding both sides of the American Athletic Conference right now in the East and the West.
This is what makes it fun, though.
It totally does, no question. I mean, who would have thunk that SMU and Tulane this late in the year would be factors for the conference championship game?
It's going to be a wild ending across the American. Thanks for tuning in with us. We hope you have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday.